Well, hello my friends, Furtado here, the Rebel Turner, back for a little while, just long enough to do a little turning. And what is today's focus? I think today's focus is really going to be on doing a whole turning with just two tools. That will be is nothing new really, but I have this piece of fat wood. Some of you might know what fat wood is. It's a pine, but it's a pine that has died and it got saturated with sap and making it almost impossible for it to decay. Very sappy, unable to sand it, so your cuts have to be clean. And the final product, and that's the reason why I'm doing this, is that fat wood is very translucent. Even if you got it 3/8 of an inch thick and you put a light to it, you're going to see the lights going through that. Now, fat wood is also known as fire starter wood. Literally, I could probably put a lighter to this and it would probably ignite, because they used to extract turpentine, and they still do, I'm sure, out of this wood. If you smell it, it smells like turpentine. So anyway, this was some pieces of wood that I found buried in my woods back there, and I've turned a couple of interesting pieces out of it. So with this piece, what could I do that's more fitting to my style of turning than a droop bowl translucent all the way through? Let's get started. Put it on the lathe, spur drive, and let me get you in there. Now, this type of turning requires two tenons. Basically, you establish the top, droop over, create a tenon, set that up on your jaws. You do the initial first rounding between centers. You can. That's how my method of turning. I don't use face plates. I could do it with a worm screw. That would work as well. But either way, I'm going to have the live center in. So, live center, shape it, shape my tenon, get the overall looking pretty good, flip it over, do the base and the undermine. Also, going to be using my two-camera system, which I am still playing with the idea of where exactly I want to locate the cameras. So I'm going to have this camera constantly recording, like this, while it has memory life, recording from the back side, and this camera will be recording from the headstock side. So hopefully I'm going to give you some interesting shots on what I'm doing and what's happening at the time, both from the back side and the inside. I know that most of the time I'm not going to be turning from back here on the headstock side, but I do that quite a bit. So this camera will move back and forth, overhead, depending on what I got going on. So let's get started. Spur drive, 4-prong. That's the spur drive of choice for me. I actually picked up a soft touch spur drive, and to me, from my type of turning, because I turn things bulk and large, for me it's not an ideal piece. As a matter of fact, I've only used it a couple of times. It's a nice spur drive if you're doing spindle turning, small stuff like that you rely but what I find is that this is very sharp and it's small teeth. So the slightest bit of pressure that you put in it, it just digs itself in all the time, and then it bottoms out over here, and then you can tighten it up anymore. That's it. Once you eat through this 1/8 of an inch depth on a teeth, you're gonna bottom out. So I don't think it's. Now I look at this piece both ways to see which way that I really want to go with it. Whether if I wanted this to the top or down, and I decided that because of this, and I want to show some of this stuff that's going through here with this knot, this branch that used to be sometime on the street. That's the character that I want to capture. Speed. It's a bulky piece. It's a very heavy piece. Number one, because it's that sapwood which will never dry up. So it will always be very heavy in weight. Speed is going to go probably at 500 RPM or so. Now, if you're lathe, if you have a Reeves drive lathe, which is nothing wrong with it, you can do a lot of work, but you got to keep in mind that your lowest speed is probably somewhere around 700 RPM mark. So just be aware of that and know that you have that working against you. It's going to shake a little, probably a little bit more than what I can get mine to shake. I might keep it on the shaky side depending on how it is, but you don't have maybe that kind of control that you can tone it down. Okay, speed. RPM. And never go on end grain from outside in. Always go from, or what should I say, never approach your tool coming in this way when you don't have to. This way the cuts are like spindle cutting, so you'll do fine. This way you're cutting into end grain, which will be a lot harder. So I'm gonna go in here and start off lightly, and as it gets screwed up, then you start getting a little bit more aggressive. The wood grain on this fab wood is really fascinating. It really does give you a nice effect. And I'm going to let these torched up, this edge that caught on fire at some time, stay as part of the character. Gotta come down a little over a third of the overall length on these troop overs.
That looks good. A nice profile. I'm going to remove still this little indent that's right there. So just shape this up a little bit more right here. Get rid of this little dent. It's part of a knot, but by losing it, it just brings me down a little bit further, that's all. Which will be fine. And this over here, well, I'm not so keen on that. That's was probably some decay that went way back into the early ages of when the tree was still up. gonna let this play going down into this part of the character, and this as well. This would look good filled up later on with some epoxy, resin, anything other than wood. So I might do that a little bit. It's time to take it, flip it, and start working from the back side. The jaws are opened up a little bit more than I like, but it's still a good grip. I'm not over opened, but I would like to see this gap a little bit smaller, 1/8 of an inch or so. Now, end grain, super strong tenon. Don't get off guard, but it will hold better than any other type of tenon that you can put up on your work. Continuing with my bowl gouge, gonna go in here, start rounding this off, make the base more or less to the size I want, and then start shaping this to under the bottom of this to create the design. And again, I'm not going to go from here. I'm going to go from the outside until I get to the depthness that I want. Then I'll be able to speed this up once I get this somewhat smooth. Go in this bottom and create my second tenon at the same time. This tenon you'll rely on this tenon so you can hollow up the top side later on. And I think that's good. Bring this down a little bit smaller. It's too big of a foot right now. starting to shape the shape of the base before I start going in there, getting rid of the bulk. Speeding it up to 620 RPM. Time to really dig this up again. Now you can see that I got a long ways to go on this. I can feather this up a little bit more to get a little bit closer, but I still got an inch to take off from this back here. So I literally can go in here where it's still easy going from out here. It's much easier to go from out here than it is to go in here. So I'm going to go in here and take off about an inch of fat. Now you see that even though I went down an inch further to make life a little bit easier, I did not interfere with anything on the natural edging of this. So that's what determines what you're going to have for a design. So I will not cut anything to the lowest point, which is this one right here, and all I got here is about 3/4 of an inch right now to this feathered edge. So that's as far as I dare cut in this way. The rest will be established from the bottom up. This mark that's over here, the decay or whatever this was, comes all the way through to the bottom of the piece. So
turning, out of this whole turning, at this point, when you're going in here, that is where is the most dangerous part of this whole turning. Not saying that it's super dangerous, but this is where you're most likely to make a mistake, come in the wrong direction, get a nasty catch, or coming in from the outside and all of a sudden realize that you're hitting two shoulders, cutting the back and the front, and that's where things get pretty nasty, or can get pretty nasty. So be careful when you're going in there. Always be aware of where you bottomed out and which direction you want to come with your gouge. I want to come this way when I'm working out, or from the outside in this way, but when I get to this bottom, I got to be careful. So I will probably be working it from both directions until I get to where I need to be. So I can go from out here as well, but it's easier to come this way. I usually am being pretty aggressive when I'm making these cuts, but because I just want to take a lot of wood off, or as much wood as I can, with the capacity or the power that I got on my lathe, which is not a lot. So I you know, still somewhat moderate on how much wood I'm taking, but always keeping in mind of what lathe you're working with, how much vibration you got, and what it is, your level of comfort. If you are at a point that you're turning, that every time you come in with your tool, you know what's going to happen, you're in pretty good shape with your turning. But if every time you come in with your tool, you're second guessing yourself, and which way am I going to make that approach or make that cut, go easy. Take your time, practice, see what's happening with your cuts, and at some time they will fall right in and you'll be doing as well as anybody. Now, you know that safety is big, and you know, but I don't have all the toys, gadgets, and everything that can make the turning, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say that what I'm doing is dangerous, but there's some things that you can get, or that you might have, that might be a little bit better than what I have as far as safety is concerned. Smaller tool rest, you know, being able to get in there a little bit tighter. A lot of times you'll see where I'm stretched out with my tool, but I feel comfortable even when I'm doing that, because I do have, I'm not using a flimsy tool that I'm afraid it's going to do something crazy. I've had one tool snap inside of a vase one time, and that was enough scare. I will never do that again. Never buy a flimsy tool that can possibly snap. And part of that was because I was in my learning stages. So learn, practice, practice, practice until you feel that you got where you need to be. You are there where you need to be once, like I said, that you go in with a tool and you know what it's going to do, and you're not worried about it getting a catch or anything like that. But if I come from inside and start scraping out with a cut, not a scrape, or if I'm coming from out here, just turn the direction of the tool and go from out here in. I'm not getting enough cut, make that small adjustment, tilt it up. But you're better off with that approach, that when you touch the wood, you're not almost making no cut at all with the way the tool is presented, than you are with going in, being aggressive right off the bat and adjust it to less aggressive.
So look at the tool. What's the relationship? What is it going to do? If I approach this way, I know that I got almost no cut at all. If I approach it this way, I know I got quite a bit of a cut. So I will approach it first on the area on the sides that I don't have a lot of cut, where I'm not aggressive, and as I'm going and adjust and know the lathe, that the contact is already made, I'm not going to be guessing what my angle is, then I follow with that. If I want it more aggressive, then I adjust it accordingly. But I don't go aggressive and then adjust it to less aggressive. Go less aggressive and adjust it to more aggressive as you proceed. So, least aggressive, adjust, more aggressive, and take as much as you feel comfortable with. You want to go a little bit like that? That is fine, you're going to get to the end. Or I can push it in, and that's the only difference. That was the only difference between the beginning, where I was taking very light shavings, and when I gouged and really started pulling a lot of stuff out of there, was how much I pushed, not how more aggressive I got. You come in and you got a lot of bounce on your tool between your piece and everything else, and it's uncontrollable. Just back off on the pressure and ease up and until it starts going smooth. If you got a high spot, work on those high spots very lightly until everything is at the same and things catch up to each other. And for those of you who are like, oh, I saw a catch, that's not a catch. That is stalling the lathe. Stalling the lathe. If the lathe had more power, it would have cut that. It would have cut that little cut that you see in there. Okay? The angle is exactly the same as I got here. A catch is something that's uncontrollable. The lathe jerks. This is just going at the same pressure that I was going back here, but the grain is a little bit harder here. So it decided not to be able to cut, and it stalls the lathe. A catch is not controlled. A catch, you will lose your contact with the tool. You will jerk. When it's something like that, it's a controlled, you could say it's a controlled catch. Not in any danger. Now if I went in here and pop, that would have been a catch. But since I'm in here, making contact, and just adjusting and going a little bit harder, and if I stall the lathe like that, that's not a catch.
time to be aggressive, and there's time to go easy. You're doing the final cut, you go slow, lightly. And be looking at what's happening with the cut. See what you want. You want bumps, you want that little detail over here, you leave it. You don't like it, you remove it. Now, I think I like the overall, but I don't like this shape that's going through it. So I'm going to fine-tune that a little bit and see what's more pleasing as I go. Final cut is your best cut. Now, one thing about this wood is that the end grain this is very brittle and it's very easy to snap. So you have to be careful when making the cuts so these little pieces don't fly away. So I'm going to go in there one more time and clean this up a little bit more cautious when I hit bottom, not to fly away, get a nice crisp edging on this hopefully. Cut away from the edge. Away from the edge. What do I mean about away from the edge? There's the edge, I'm going away from it. There was the edge, I went away from it. Don't come into the edge because it will chip. Want to see if I got a clean edge all the way through. I do still have a couple of those bumps in here. Nothing that was created with this cut. It was too deep, so I have to go a little bit deeper and do that one more time, but the same method.
going from the top of the edge and away, going from the top of the edge and go on the opposite way. I like that better. Now, I say, I like that better. That's only for my taste. Not necessarily that you have to like it better. So you create based on what you find you like. Now, I can tell you, I see a little fuzz here, but the cuts on this whole thing look pretty good. Other than this area right here, where I got a little fuzzy. But this looks good. At this point, it's much easier for me to go from out here and feather this down just to bring this down a little bit more than it is me to continue here. But I do have this little flat part that I don't like. This is where I went in, so I gotta come out just a little further, which is the furthest point out on this, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so I gotta scrape it away from it just a little bit. Just get rid of that sharp edge, that straight edge. It's a natural edge and means that it should not have any straight edges if you can help it. Sometimes you have no choice. But when you have no choice, that's different than when you do have a choice. So just gonna, you know, I have shown this a few times, you know, that it's okay for you to mark your tool post or your tool rest to where you need to focus on. This is where I need to focus on, is in here, not back here. I'm pretty sure that got rid of that little square edge which I no longer see it. And it did. So all the bottom edge is uniform and crisp. When you got a little bit of sanding to do on these type of edges, just work it towards the center. But on the piece like this, probably won't even bother with it. I will leave all these little points coming down, and the finish on this will be spray lacquer, because I'm not going to be able to get anything in there, and this wood does not penetrate very well. So time to go and just feather this down a little bit. I could leave it the way it is, and sometimes the saying of leave well alone, well enough alone, is good word of advice, and usually I trust it when I see that I'm at that point. But for some reason I just want to feather this slightly, almost not touch it. I'm sure that did it. And that did it. It was just enough to feather it down a little bit. I think that looks good. It's probably a little bit thicker than what I thought I was. I thought I was fairly thin, but the weight is telling me otherwise. Probably got a full 3/8 of an inch thickness going through here, and then the very base is a little bit thicker than that. It's got a little bit of detailing going through the bottom, but nothing spectacular. It's only what attracts one. Whether if you attracted to something like this or not, that's really irrelevant. It's whatever you make that you like. Here's the decay that was there, that went all the way through. Gonna keep it like that. I like it. I hope you like it too, and I hope you share it so your friends can enjoy it as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next turn. This is Furtado, the Rebel Turner, saying, see you later. Bye.